Okay, so beginning my new school versus old school for the WWE or WWF, depending on the time you're looking at this. Someone threw out comparing Trish Stratus and Charlotte. So I'll go over some of the quicks real quick. Heights. Trish billed at 5'4". Charlotte 5'10". If you want comparisons, the current average height of a woman, U.S. measurement, is about 5'5". So Trish slightly smaller than the average woman. The average man currently in the U.S. is about 5'9", give or take. For a while it was 5'10". Currently it's 5'9.3". So it's gone down a little bit, but so that means Charlotte is currently larger than the average male, where Trish is shorter than the average female. Within range. Trish's career was about 7 years, including the time that she was signed to when she actually retired. She is a 7-time women's champ and a 1-time hardcore champ. In May of this year, Charlotte will have been wrestling effectively for 5 years, including developmental time. She's a 4-time women's champ, 1-time Divas champ, and 1-time NXT champ. I think it's only 4 times. It's been a while since she's beaten Charlotte for the belt again. So you've got 8 championships on Trish, 6 championships on Charlotte. I do this through a whole different set of criteria. So you've got strength, speed, endurance, toughness. That's all physical attributes. Then we go into the in-ring style, which would be your striking, grappling, submissions, high flying. And then finally ends up being the psychological aspect of wrestling. When your music hits, does the crowd pop? Do you get a reaction? It doesn't matter if you get boos or not. This is the Roman Reigns, John Cena approach. If the crowd makes noise, how do you move in the ring? How do you sell an injury? How do you bring the audience in for the match? And then finally, how good are you on the mic? Now, before a bunch of people throw comments on the bottom, you know it's scripted. Yes, everything you see on TV has a script. Deal with it. So let's get into this. First and foremost, strength. I don't think anyone is going to have any issue with Charlotte taking it in strength. She is ridiculously physically impressive. Beyond having 6 inches on Trish, Charlotte is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. Period. Speed, I'll just go with endurance as well. Paul Heyman will back me up on this. Charlotte is an Olympic-class athlete. She had scholarships in volleyball. She knows gymnastics. She was a personal trainer. I mean, she physically has probably one of the most solid pedigrees you're ever going to see for a professional athlete. Period. Toughness. I'm going to give that one to Trish. Now, hear me on this one. Trish actually wrestled with really severe injuries. Remember, for a while, she actually wrestled with a face mask on because she had a broken nose. We haven't seen Charlotte really suffer a major injury and then wrestle with it, as well as having other much larger injuries that Trish has been able to keep on going through. Striking. This one's a bit more difficult, because look at the finishing maneuvers. You know, you do have the chick kick, which was one of the finishes of Trish Stratus, versus that sick high boot that Charlotte's got. She has a tremendous big boot. She also has a wicked spear. So I'm definitely going to give that to Charlotte. Grappling, I'll give grappling to Trish, because when you watch how Charlotte wrestles, Charlotte very much, from a heel persona standpoint, has a brawler style, because there's lots of big, heavy hits. So you're really not seeing her doing that much in the way of suplexes more often, or body slams. You're also not seeing her do anything like a bulldog, where Trish, her finisher, was a bulldog. She also had, I think it was the stratosphere, where it points on the top rope and she would then kind of roll her legs up top and take her down in a head scissors motion. Charlotte doesn't do that. A lot of it's because, given her physical size, there are lots of things she's not going to be able to physically do. Charlotte isn't going to be able to do a Hurricane Rana. She probably physically can, but given the size of her body, there's probably nobody who can support her the length throughout the entire position of the move. I think she could probably do a sick set of suplexes. But Becky does suplexes. So you can tell her style is a lot more, it's more geared towards like how her father's was. There's a lot of big physical strikes, and very, very little in the way of the actual, like catch-can style of grappling maneuvers. That being said, for submissions, I'm looking at Trish actually, for a while, used the sharpshooter. For not quite a year, she used the sharpshooter in like 2006, and she retired in 2006. Versus Charlotte with the figure eight. Her submission is her bread and butter. She learned it from her dad, and she improved upon it. High flying. I don't think anybody is going to have a problem with me saying when it comes to a high flying standpoint, yeah, Trish does some top rope moves. But the moonsault that Charlotte does with the outside, the twisting moonsault, she is, like I said before, she is an Olympic level athlete who's pulling a lot of this off just from sheer natural athleticism. Over with the crowd. When their music hits, who got a bigger pop? I think that, beyond the fact that she's currently a legend, Trish got a very strong response from the crowd. Very strong response from the crowd. Charlotte gets a lot of woos because she's a Flair. But I think that the overall crowd response is definitely stronger for Trish Stratus. Ring psychology. I'm going to give ring psychology to Trish. A lot of it, I think, is because I'm looking at Trish over a 7-year period, where with Charlotte, we don't quite have 5 years. And if I were to be comparing Trish at 5 years versus Charlotte at 5 years, probably entirely different. But I think that she did a much better job at selling either the fear of an opponent, selling damage from an opponent. When she was heel, her mannerisms were straight up, don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't touch me, you are so beneath me. And those were her overall physical mannerisms. When she was a face, she came up very warm and inviting. As a heel, stone cold, here's a wall. She would tweak the way that she'd wrestle a match, and she definitely played towards the crowd more both ways. I have a feeling that Charlotte in front of 100 people or 1,000 people wrestled the exact same style. Very technically gifted, very sound, very perfectionist style. There's not as much of interaction with the crowd as much. And I think more of that is because she does have more of the air of superiority. So again, from a heel standpoint, it makes sense that she doesn't care for the crowd. And most of her matches show her just being undeniably physically dominant, so she's not really showing a level of fear. Now, in a year or two, this can entirely be different. She actually could have hit that point where she's fully comfortable and evolved into her overall character, that she can do more when it comes to the selling of the match instead of the overall just physical acclimate. And then mic work. Trish is a lot more comfortable on a microphone. She's a lot more comfortable with who she's trying to represent and who she is. Charlotte, when she's good, she's good. But the problem is, she's very robotic. There's a fine line between being robotic and authoritative. I think the problem is when she's trying to be really authoritative, she's like, everyone be quiet. There's more of a monotone to it, and the overall tempo of the delivery just slightly comes off like she's reading a teleprompter. And again, that's because from her time at NXT, your interviews were done backstage. Where if you made mistakes, fix it, do a little more to it, gel it again. Where when she's in the ring on Raw, you can tell that there's lots of memorized, so she's trying to do a perfect job. And doing it technically perfect, there's just that little gap when it comes to really believing what is it you're saying. And something too is, I think her character is good, but there's just some small tweaks here and there, and she'd be an absolutely perfect character. From a physical standpoint, technical in-ring standpoint, she is amazing. From a character, if I'm comparing Charlotte's character to, let's say, the boss, Sasha Banks, there's a very defined amount of ring psychology. There's a very definite character. This is who I am. The boss, Sasha Banks, or the queen, Charlotte Flair. You can tell there's definitely more gravitas to the boss character. I think it's because she actually spent more time refining it, and there was a time when she was in NXT when she absolutely ruled the roost. I'm talking about Sasha. Where Charlotte, not as much. Not as much. But I guess this is where we're at now. Who knows, in 1 or 2 years, she might finally really fully hit that stride. I mean, let's say she goes to SmackDown. Charlotte on Talking Smack, where it's more of a, here's some questions, unfiltered, go. I've heard Charlotte's interviews. Her interviews are vastly different from how she's in the ring, doing a promo in the ring. And you can tell that because one is Charlotte, one is Ashley. And I think if they can bring more Ashley into Charlotte, they've already got a tremendous physical specimen. She is an amazing athlete. Those little slight tweaks here and there will easily make her, because currently she's one of the top women's wrestlers, those slight little tweaks here and there will easily make her the top women's wrestler.